I'm Shahar Azani, and welcome to this episode of Eye on Israel. When you see her, you can't help falling in love with her. Indeed, it seems that arriving in Israel, interacting with ordinary Israelis and witnessing this modern-day miracle is key to changing perceptions. These perceptions are often shaped by the mainstream media and reporters' bias, anti-Israel propaganda machines, and other forces at work. But then, you actually get to Israel. You interact firsthand with the achievements, misgivings, successes, and failures. You understand just how much Israelis are critical of themselves, no matter what anyone says about them on the outside. More than anything, for some, it's the first understanding that Israelis, they're not only made of or consist of European Jewry. Israelis are Christians, they're Arabs, they're Muslims, they're Druze, they're Bedouins and Jews from all over the Middle East, and indeed, 4 corners of the earth. The Jewish National Fund's Caravan for Democracy is one of the prominent, most unique programs out there to acquaint the world with Israel. The Caravan for Democracy, CFD, mission is to facilitate constructive dialogue about Israel and the Middle East on college campuses all across America. They do so by giving non-Jewish student leaders a unique opportunity to experience Israel firsthand by themselves. Since 2012, the program has provided over 700 student leaders from over 120 academic institutions from across the United States with a rare opportunity to explore the Jewish and democratic Israel through first-hand travel experience and opportunities to meet with political leaders, cultural, media, community leaders from diverse backgrounds and faiths. Parallel to Caravan, JNF operates a faculty fellowship program in Israel. The faculty fellowship is a 12-day intensive program for full-time academics at a recognized learning institution. The program commenced in 2008 and is now in its 15th year with over 600 faculty fellows who travel to Israel, and they represent over 120 universities and colleges across the United States. I had the unique opportunity to speak to those groups when I was in Israel, and I was impressed to the core with the people I had the privilege of meeting, and I could not wait to come back and share this experience with all of you here on JBS. Today, it gives me indeed a great and distinct pleasure to be joined by 2 close friends, colleagues, mentors, the movers and shakers behind these unique programs. Vivian Grossman serves as Vice President of Marketing for the Jewish National Fund USA. She's also a member of the organization's World Chairman's Council, co-chair of JNF's Heritage Site Task Force. Together with host Stephen Shalowitz, she produces Israelcast, JNF's premier podcast on Israel and its fascinating people. Vivian is the face behind the ever-growing Humans of JNF Facebook page and Jewish National Fund USA's Conversations on Zionism series, which I had the pleasure of being a part of. She is highly active. I think from what you heard just now, you understand how active Vivian is in the organization's faculty fellowship program in Israel. She has helped connect hundreds of professors in the US to their colleagues and counterparts in Israel, resulting, get this, in genuine, authentic, long-term collaborations. Wow, just listening to this, I understand the amount of energy involved. Rene Reinhard is the Executive Director of the Faculty Fellowship Program in Israel and Caravan for Democracy Student Leadership Program. He has been running the Faculty Fellowship since 2008 and CFD, you see I already know the jargon, Caravan for Democracy, since 2021. I have known Rene and his work for many, many, many years, since my time at Israel's Foreign Ministry, and have always been impressed with his energy, his enthusiasm, and great passion to tell Israel's story, sometimes against all odds and in the face of much frustration. It's a joy to have both of you join me here on JBS. What a pleasure and a privilege. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Shahar. It's great to be here.
So I want to ask you first, Vivian. I have to tell you, my head spun just listening to the list of activities that you're involved in. So let me ask you what each and every viewer is thinking to themselves as they're watching this. What got you so involved and what drives you to make this difference?
Well, being a loud and proud Zionist, I have to say, if not us, then whom? It's our job to, when you have a passion, it's your responsibility to stand up and take it to the next level. So I got involved with JNF about 15 years ago, and they really gave me the opportunity to use my voice to put it into action. And as you can see, the opportunities were there and I took advantage of them. And I believe we all have to do all we can to make the world a better place. And that's my way of making my part of the world a better place.
You know, and I'm looking for your background, the Zionist element in your identity, you know, Zionism, action, activity, really reclaiming that word is part and parcel of your personality. What kind of impact have you seen to the kind of work that you're doing on a multitude of arenas you're involved in?
Well, across the board, anecdotally, part of our goal with Conversations on Zionism was to encourage people not to run from the word and the inspiration of Zionism. And we're hearing people use the word around the globe. One of the great impacts of the Faculty Fellowship Program, of which I've been fortunate to staff as a lay leader about 6 or 7 trips, is that many of the professors, when they first go, they've heard of the word Zionism probably in a more negative, anti-Semitic trope kind of way, or not heard of it at all. There are many, perhaps most, who have never heard of Zionism. And as they go through the experience of 12 days in the authentic Israel experience, hearing from thought leaders from all aspects of Israeli society, at the end, you hear conversations about, I'm a Zionist. I believe in this inspiration, this movement for Jewish determination, for self-determination in their homeland. I'm a Zionist. And nothing more than that puts a smile on our faces.
Right, and smile is so important. Rene, I have to ask you, you know, leading these 2 great programs, you know, one for students and one for faculty, that takes a lot out of someone. And you've been doing that for a couple of years. What have you learned in the course of the work that you've been doing?
Look, I'm looking at the background and, you know, Eye on Israel. What have I learned? I've learned to see Israel through, goodness gracious, now maybe 700 sets of eyes. And each time I get to see Israel in a different sense. And this is somebody that, you know, I moved to Israel. I served in the IDF. I believed I knew everything about Israel until I joined JNF, until I started running these programs. And every single trip, I hear from the students, I hear from the faculty, oh my goodness, we didn't realize Israel was like this. Oh my goodness, Israel isn't the monolithic place that we saw. Oh wow, Israel, I mean, from the mundane to, wow, Israel has trees and greenery and parks. It's not just a desert. To look at Israel, the startup nation, and the spirituality that comes out, even if you're not, you know, you're not religious or you don't practice a faith, the spirituality that comes out when you're standing in Jerusalem on a Friday afternoon and you hear the prayers, the hopes, the wishes at the Kotel, the Western Wall. You hear the muezzins from the Dome of the Rock, and you hear the church bells. It's look, I'm already getting goosebumps as I speak to you. That's what does to me every single trip. So when I can't even answer any further than that than say these relationships, I'm going to say the return of investment that we get from doing these programs, it just keeps carrying on and on and on.
You know,
so
but
the fact that now we have 6.
But I'm just thinking to myself, you spent almost 2 weeks on a bus with a couple of dozen people, whether professors, whether students. It's a very intense experience, isn't it?
It's incredibly intense. You get to see, and this is when the best part of the program is, these are faculty and these are students who are chosen because of their individuality. And that's a key word in these whole programs, individualism. We're looking at everybody. They're different disciplines. They're studying different things. They're different religions or no religion. They have, we have biomechanics sitting next to nursing, to English, to drama, to music. So the dynamics inside the bus are just as important and as intensive, because you've got 40 people or 40 on each bus trying to work out how to live together for 12 days, while they're also being wowed by the scene, by the scenery outside, by the guest speakers, by everything that's happening. As one of our really amazing professors said, that, it's not what she just saw in Israel, it's what she also learnt about herself. And right. I think that's pretty true of everyone.
Wow. You know what you mentioned before, the idea of investment and continuation. There is a lot of criticism, or, within the Jewish world, when they look at different programs and they tell themselves, hey, so we did this trip, then what? Maybe share a little bit, you, Rene, and then you, Vivian, about the long-term impact of these programs. Like how we have a trip. During the trip, there is this incredible experience. And then what happens? They come back. What then happens? Maybe you start, Rene.
So I'll start on a few different levels. First of all, you have the emotional and the spiritual level. You have the fact that for many of these students and faculty, they come to Israel with preconceived notions that, Israel is full of unrest. There's conflict. It's dry. It's a desert. There's camels. There's, just so much of the world that shows Israel not always in a positive light. So that at the end of the trip, when you're sitting there and you hear them say, Israel is an amazing place, it's beautiful, it's full of love, it is full of peace, it does show coexistence, and makes you realize it's all worth it. But it gets better than that. And your next guest, can accentuate on that we've had the faculty, first of all, we've had some programs where 40 to 60% of the faculty stay on in Israel at their own volition, their own cost. Then we have people that have gone back to Israel. We've had 6 faculty in the last 3 months return to Israel for different reasons. Some to take their families, some to go back to universities. We schedule 500 meetings a year for the faculty with their Israeli colleagues, as you touched upon with Vivian. It is incredible to see the funding requests, the amount of collaboration. We just had 2 faculty, and I probably should mention their names, have just been at Tel Chai Academic College. They've just done semesters there.
Because they chose to go.
They chose to go. We craft the experience for them. What they get out of the experience shows us that 96% of them tell them Israel was an amazing, positive experience. They chose to go back. They choose to apply for grants through NIH, through BSF, NSF. They're the ones that are getting millions of dollars of grants to work with their Israeli colleagues because they see the value of Startup Nation. But not only that, they come back to their campuses. What's the return? They come back to their campuses. They amplify that positively Israel message that we've provided them. They go back and tell their classes, their students, their faculty colleagues, their families, their communities. It just amplifies it. It's an add-on effect. So from one person already up to 100, the fact that 65% of our applications now are from referrals from students in Caravan. If I could just share with you, it's just so funny to hear a faculty fellow ring me 5 years after being on the program. Rene, I'm so excited. Two of my Jewish kids in my class, I sent them on Birthright. Wow. I sent 3 to Caravan for Democracy. And I have the students doing the same thing. So, and the speakers we have in Israel come to the campuses. And this is just part of the return of investment. I could go on.
It's incredible. Vivian?
I would echo what Rene said. We hear when the trip is coming to an end and everyone is sad and hoping that they can somehow delay it. They're trying to figure out ways to get back to Israel. I remember one trip by the end of the first day, 4 professors were trying to figure out how to get on a sabbatical. By the end of the first day, they were figuring out, how do I get back here? There's something special happening. And when they return, They're looking for ways to tell their stories. They're looking for the academic collaboration. How do I continue my collaboration with my colleagues in Israel, which is a critical component of the program? And they're looking to scream loudly, Israel is complex, Israel is beautiful, Israel is not what's presented in the news.
Right. And you mentioned that you staffed some of these trips. Now, have you seen firsthand that change that Rene was mentioning in perceptions? Like somebody comes with a certain perception and then you accompany them on this process? And how was that? What does that look like? And how involved were you in reshaping the narrative?
When we interview, and I've been fortunate to interview many applicants, everyone sounds like a blank slate, and in many ways they are blank slates, yet Israel is in the news every day. Israel is more in the news than anywhere else practically. So everyone has preconceived notions, whether they're aware of them or not. And the first day, Rene does an exercise that I'll tell it because it just came up, but he asked people we go around the circle and ask people to say, what are your impressions of Israel? Give us a word that tells us about Israel. And people say religion, conflict, one word that is what they're bringing to the table. Right. By the end, they talk about hope and love and coexistence and things they never thought they would experience. I mean, the amount of people that talk about hope is a beautiful thing. And we see their transition. Many of the conversations take place late at night in the bars, knowing we have to be up at 6 a.m.
The best of them. The best of these conversations.
The best of them, knowing we're up at 6 a.m., our bags in the lobby at 6:30, bring your own bags to the bus. We tell everyone this trip is grueling, yet we're talking until the wee hours of the night about what they've experienced, how it fits in. The conversations are so fabulous, so inspiring, because we get to see the transition that they go through.
Right. I have to say, one of my experiences speaking to these students was the amount of optimism and hope. I mean, it's not devoid of complexities and issues. I've had one student come up to me after the talk and saying, it's so frustrating. And I say, yes, it is. The politics of the region is so frustrating. Now you understand how Israelis are feeling about this. Thank you. It is frustrating. There is no easy solution. There is no black and white. Welcome to the land of gray. Relish it, cherish it, cope with it. That's what we're all about. And you know what else amazed me? And Rene, that goes to your point about investment and building relationships, is how many of these students reached out afterwards, asked to keep in touch, said, let's do something together. Let's bring that hope. Let's make things happen. That idea of having a problem and rolling up the sleeves and wanting to fix it is not unique only to Israel. It's universal, isn't it, Rene?
It certainly is. And I think that is really the best result of the program. And as we say, it's, you take from Israel what we craft the experience, but you take it and you share and you do with it what you will. And what is the beautiful part? And funny enough, as you're saying this morning, all I've been on the phone and on WhatsApp chats with the students and with faculty. By the way, there's a group of faculty who want to do a reunion. And I said, let's do it in Brooklyn. They said, no, we want to do it in Jerusalem. So that's going back and forth. But the students, I've been on the phones with students, and they're moving into their careers. Even when they finish school, they're still involved in the program. They're moving into careers in so many different areas, whether it be a teacher, whether it be interning in the highest levels of government or State Department. They believe in the message, Positively Israel. And what that also means for us, the region, the world, be a part of the movement to do positive, to do good things.
Right.
They don't just feed into the negativity, because together, and that's what we've said, as individuals, so much we can do to make the world a better place.
Rene, there must be so much that goes into planning those trips. it's a very delicate matter to make sure that nobody views it as a propaganda mission or somebody's going to hammer, North Korean messaging into our heads. I mean, if anybody thinks that, little do they know about Israel. But how do you, the kind of work that you do in planning this and, getting ready for it, how do you counter this potential threat even before it occurs? What goes into the planning of such a successful trip?
So we have a syllabus, and obviously, we keep an eye on current events in Israel, on current events in the region, in the world, and we we ask our speakers to address it. We look, Israel has nearly 9.5 million people, so that's, nearly 20 million different opinions and views. In 12 days, we try and give them at least 1,000 of those opinions and views, but we make sure that everybody knows, be respectful. Ask the questions you can't ask when you're not in Israel. Israel, what we show them, Israel is not monolithic. The incredible diversity of Israel, the beautifulness, the warmth of the people. And as you said, the ability to have honest, participative conversations. And that's really, really important. And we interview Vivian and I have been many times in Israel before the trips.
Right.
We seek out people from all different walks of life. We interview them. And yes, you're right. Do we have to look for somebody? If I know somebody is this side of the political fence, yes, I have to try and look for somebody on the other side. I've been accused of being all shades, all different political perspectives. And my biggest fear is when a speaker can't show up, because then we have to find somebody else who can represent their view.
Right. Vivian, I have to say that when I talk to you about the programs, I can't ignore your incredible, effusive energy and smile. You look like you're a proud mother observing her child, as they grow up. So I want to touch for a minute with you on the emotional aspect of this trip. What kind of an emotional journey do you go through? Because I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that each and every trip is a journey unto itself. It seems like this is not something you just get used to, a mundane trip that in and out, kind of as a spiel or a usual. It's so unusual the way it takes place.
So first, I want to back into what Rene said. I can't tell you how many hundreds of hours go into crafting the itinerary. We meet with, and it's really Rene driven. He and those of us that support him meet with so many people on Zoom prior. We work so hard to try and show that particular a group, that cohort, as broad a range of Israeli society as possible. Each group takes on a personality. Each group has a certain kind of energy, and it is fabulous to talk to people. My first trip, I'll never forget this. As soon as the professors got on the bus from Ben Gurion Airport, every window seat was taken. That's all they did. They sat in every window seat. So every time we got on the bus, I would sit next to a different person. Hi, can I sit next to you and talk to you? I got to speak to almost everyone on the bus intimately many times. And the stories they told me about themselves and why they applied, or what motivated them to come to Israel and what they were seeing, what their takeaways were, was amazing. There's nothing better than seeing Israel through the eyes of first-timers, especially those who are there. Many of them apply. They're curious about Israel, but if they're on a tenure track, the international academic engagement is really a motivator for many of these professors. So to see what they go through emotionally, spiritually, politically is fascinating. And at the end, they realize when they speak to people back home, if they simplify the region, if they make it a simple black and white, they have them there and they don't know what they're talking about, because that's how complex it is.
One of the things, as I listen to you both, one of the things that really stands out, and both of you have repeated it, is the idea of this trip as connecting for good. It's like you're not even Israel focused or general. You're just about bringing good people together to understand human society and to learn how to come together and resolve issues, differences, and problems. And the fact that it happens in Israel is wonderful, but the message, the underlying message and the understanding is far more universal and far stronger than any short-term, one-lane channeling of agenda or perspective, which is quite impressive. So kudos to you both. And I have to say, I'm sure I'm echoing all of our viewers as they listen to you and are inspired by you and ask themselves, what can we do to change discourse on college campuses with something that is so effective, so genuine, so long-term? If we have a recommendation for a student leader or a professor, how do we get in touch? Where do we learn about the program? So maybe share a little bit about how it's done. Maybe Rene, you can tell us a little bit about how can our viewers learn more about the program? How can they apply, recommend someone? How does that work?
Well, first of all, every viewer is welcome to contact me, or I'm going to speak for Vivian and say Vivian as well. The programs, so Faculty Fellowship runs twice a year. We have a summer program and a winter program. We have an online presence at www.ff2israel.org, as well as Caravan once a year. That's in December, and that's open for up to 80 student leaders. Again, the website's pretty clear, online applications. As I said, referrals from other people that have been on the program, from alumni, that's the key. We do get, they are competitive processes. We get a lot more applications than we do have places on the program. But the key is, we have our lay leaders who are, just like they've been integrally involved in the selection process for both the student leaders and the faculty. They go through interviews. They have to demonstrate why this program stands out and why they stand out. And that's key. For the long-term involvement. Vivian?
I would just add that this is Jewish National Fund's way of creating allies on campuses across the U.S. Jewish National Fund is so involved in educating people with Zionist educating people about Israel. And these two programs are gems in the crown of Jewish National Fund, truly. So anyone can also go to jnf.org and find out more about the education component in the United States. It's a very important part of the mission and vision of JNF.
It sounds ally for Israel, ally for humanity, because the values that this encompasses, they're so deep, they're so profound, they're so meaningful to our existence as individuals in today's society. No matter where I'm from, what you speak about echoes very deeply with me. And Rene, I have to tell you, looking on your background, one of the words that really stands out is fellowship. Whether it's faculty fellowship, whether it's student fellowship, whether it's the fellowship of the team members who are part of this exquisite program, I just want to compliment both of you and JNF for the work that you're doing to make this world a better place, not just, to better the perceptions about the politics of the Middle East and the region, but the hope that you infuse in each participant's heart and the inspiration that they too, and each and every one of us, can make a difference. I want to thank you for your efforts, for your long time work, and for taking the time off of your hectic and insane schedule, as I believe, to join us here today on JBS and to continue to share your important message. Toda Rabba. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Toda Rabba, Shahar.
Thank you so
much for having us.
Thank you, Shahar. Been great. Thank you very much.
Been great. Thank you.
The Faculty Fellowship Program, as we just heard, focuses on bringing academics to Israel. One such academic is Dr. Jody Holland. Dr. Holland is an associate professor in the Department of Public Policy Leadership at the University of Mississippi, where he teaches policy classes and researches leadership theory. Using a critical analysis perspective, he teaches solution-based strategies to enhance leadership development. In his new book, Leadership Literacy, Jody highlights the inspired leadership framework to guide emerging leaders in a post-pandemic world. Jody, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
So, we just heard a little bit from Rene and Vivian about the faculty fellowship, but we have the opportunity to speak to you now. So give us that perspective. Like, how did you come about the trip? What did you think before? How was that process for you? Please share.
So let me tell you, I heard someone who went on this trip many years ago, so I knew a little bit about it, but I was raised in rural Mississippi, and I never had this identity of going to be able to travel the world. But as I got into academia, I had the opportunity to visit many countries. Israel was one of the 12th country that I was able to visit. And when I applied for the faculty fellowship and I received the invitation letter to be a part of it, I started telling people where I was going. And many people had the negative perception of don't go, it's chaos there. There's opportunities for conflict to emerge. And I said, I'm going to step into this. I want to see what this is like. I've never studied the Middle East, but I will say this. It was one of the greatest trips I've ever been on. All those misconceptions are exactly that, misconceptions. Those are the opportunity to be a part of this was amazing. It was a great investment in me. As I left there, I enhanced my ability to learn about the region, religion, the culture, the multi-dimensional perspectives of Israel and the Middle East, and I think in the politics around that too. So when I left, it was an investment in me because I wanted to take students back there. And from there, we just got back 48 hours ago. I took 30 students to Israel for spring break. So the Faculty Fellowship is a program that really opened my eyes up and helped me develop connections with other faculty, whether they're Israeli or American, to build relationships to enhance my career and enhance my perspective. I can't speak highly enough about the experience and the investment from the program.
I have to ask you, how did you hear about the program?
So I had a student years ago tell me about birthright. I grew up Christian. I didn't know about birthright. I'm not Jewish. And so when she told me about it and she told me the experience when she came back, then the application for JNF came across my desk, and I thought it was a birthright application, to tell you the truth. And then I looked at it, it was for faculty and for non-Jewish. Many were non-Jewish on the trip. And I said, oh, it's framed like a birthright. So that's when I knew to connect with that. But it was really happenstance that I came across it. And then once I applied, I sent some emails out, and there was another faculty years ago at Ole Miss, University of Mississippi, who has gone on it. And I called him and I asked him about it. And he said, if you get a chance, you better go.
So let me ask you, what were your thoughts about Israel and the greater Middle East before going on the trip? You, not what people told you. What did you know, think, or feel about this place?
Yeah, so, Rene did that experiment with me with asking me one word about it before we left. And it's security issues, conflict. Every descriptor that came out of my mouth was usually kind of negative. But let me go explore that. I have a nature of wanting to explore.
You hear of those dangers, and all you're thinking about is let me explore it? That's impressive, Jody.
Well, I want to see it for myself because the more I talk to people and more I really looked at the nuances of the culture, it's not true. I mean, it's a beautiful culture. It's an opportunity where I think, especially here in the South, in Mississippi, we talk about race relations. We don't really even understand it from the coexistence of the multidimensional aspects of culture in Israel. And it's so much to learn there. And I wanted to take my students and teach them that and show them, not teach them, show them. I just wanted to expose them and let them take away what they take away from it. But yeah.
So you first went on the trip as an academic, and then coming back, you initiated this trip for your students based on the values that you picked up. So let me ask you about Israel. Share with me an experience that when you went first on that first trip that you went, Jody. One experience that impacted you, changed you, showed you something, surprised you, something that you want to share.
It's the deep religious belief of multiple cultures that I saw. Whether we're with the Western Wall and seeing individuals in the Orthodox community, or the Christians who are at the baptism and understanding that, or the Muslims when we actually went to some Bedouin communities and talked to them and understanding how they had these deep different beliefs, but they coexisted together, and how beautiful that was. And even in those different beliefs, which many people in the narrative say that divides them, the coexistence brings them together. And I thought it was such a beautiful aspect of Israel that is not talked about. That was one of the things that touched me. Also, the opportunity to really integrate myself and learn from other cultures, but also the American professors who went there. It was great to connect with them. I'm a public policy leadership professor, but I got to, speak with botanists. I got to speak with chemists. I got to speak with engineers and build those relationships. Again, I just returned there, and while I was there, I was FaceTiming with so many of these professors back in America saying, remember when we were here? So it's the connectivity. And the ability to, I wouldn't call myself an ambassador, but I kind of became an ambassador. My fourth grade teacher was on a trip 3 weeks ago to Israel, and she called me because she knew I'd been there, and she was scared to death to go. She almost canceled the trip. And I said, no, go, you have to go. I called her just yesterday when we get back, she goes, thank you for making me go. It was such an amazing trip.
Wow.
It's those type things. Everybody's going to get their richness and their depth and their understanding as they go through it, but it's such an investment to go in yourself and understanding and learning.
You're talking about an ambassador, and in a way, we could all be ambassadors of good. Ambassadors of goodwill, connecting people. So if we carry that mission onto ourselves, we shouldn't just relegate it to the day-to-day diplomats who focus only on several aspects, but rather really adopt it wholeheartedly, just the way I'm listening to you. And you're mentioning, beautiful places you visited, and I can't help but ask the obvious. We're all looking at your background photo. Maybe there is something you can share with us. You don't have to disclose the identity of the lady in pink, but just tell us a little bit about what is that?
So, this is a picture of all the students at the Dead Sea. And, this enthusiasm, this energy you see, this was a spring break trip. And a lot of my students were seniors who had been on multiple spring break trips, the college spring break trips, the Panama cities, the Caribbeans. And every one of them told me, they said, Dr. Holland, this was the best spring break trip I've ever been on. And this was a trip where they were up at 8 o'clock in the morning. We were busy, site visits, educational speakers until 10 o'clock at night sometimes. So my point of it is, this enthusiasm that you see behind me is what we saw over 12 days, and it continued to manifest as we left and as we got home. I just walked across campus and bumped into 3 of these students, and I asked them if they've recovered, how their jet lag is, and they just continue to speak so positively about the trip. So it's such an investment. I had such fun there, but also it's so meaningful.
You know what? The fact that you use the word fun is super profound, because to many people dealing with the Middle East, the region, Israel, the complexities, the word fun, you don't hear it often. And I'm so happy that you chose it, because it says so much about you and about how you can really experience Israel in such a way. I want to ask you about something that attracted my attention in your bio, which is inspired leadership. So much in Israel is about inspiration. Tell us a little bit about that element of inspiration.
So inspired leadership is an acronym in the book that takes in leaders through the pillars of developing, self-developing. But inspiration is something that I see so much in Israel. Part of our trip was about leadership and innovation and going to different perspectives, going to different places and seeing the innovation of the Israeli community, the innovation in the desert, the innovation.
So that's what you did with the students now.
Yes, that's what we did. We took them over there and we showed them opportunities of innovation and inspiration and the hope that's there. That's what many of them left with, was this inspiration that, hey, there's a quality community in Israel that is developing and has developed. It's almost like we're talking past tense. This is present tense.
Right.
This phenomenon of hope and inspiration continues to manifest and inspire communities. And that's why I wanted to take students back, because I knew they could learn from the experience and be inspired in such a self-determination perspective.
Right. And what about the long-term activities or long-term impact of those trips? One immediate long-term impact is visible, your ability to lead student missions to Israel, which is unbelievable. And thank you for that, Jody. But talk to us a little bit about the long-term effect.
Well, from my student perspective, many of these will go into political positions in D.C. Many of them are working in municipalities and in large municipalities, and they're going to build those relationships. I've already heard that when we were leaving. I had 3 students say, how can I get back over here? I'm going to go talk to the people I'm working with. So you're going to see the long-term impacts of that. But we're not done. We're already planning a May 2024 trip to take more students and expose them. Me personally, I'm setting goals as an academic to do research on leadership profiles in Israel and learn more about that. So there are significant long-term effects. And not just that, the relationships that I've built over there. Gaia was our tour guide over there, an amazing individual the tour guides are so amazing about knowing the richness of the communities, and they're so trained and prepared to understand what's going on. And I just couldn't ask for a better individual for that. But these are going to be decade-long investments that JNF put into us that they're going to get returns on.
And are you still being approached by other faculty members who have not gone to Israel? Do they know that element of your identity? And then when you talk to them, I'm just wondering, between me and myself, just between us here, do you ever say, have you been there?
Oh, that's all I have to say now. You know what I mean? It's people who have negative constructs on it or negative perspectives on it. I'll say, well, you haven't been there, and let me tell you about this example. Let me tell you about this experience. You know, and there's the narrative out there. I just encourage people to go there because it's a beautiful place, not just in landscape, but in culture. It's a beautiful place in people, and I truly believe if it wasn't for the beauty of the individuals who live there, then you would not have the aspects of culture that it is, because it's so complicated and complex. I do say that many times. Go there, continue, and I'll continue going back.
Right. You know, even if people just understood that, I found it to be true, Jody. If people simply understood that, hey, things are complex, they're not as simple as you might think, we would be at a much better place, I think.
Multi-dimensional. That's what I say. It's layers upon layers upon layers. But you can get a perspective of it. I had one student tell me, Dr. Holland, I learned 10 years of information in 10 days. And I said, then I did my job.
Wow. What a great note to end this short conversation, Jody. Thank you so much for your words of inspiration. It has been wonderful just listening to you speaking about this and how this intertwines with who you are as a person, as a leader, as a teacher. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you.
So exciting. Cornelius Salonis. He was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He's a current junior at the Alabama A&M, working towards his bachelor's in physics. During his time in university, Cornelius has been able to participate in a variety of unique and meaningful experiences that helped put him here today. He has visited national laboratories, presented at regional and national conferences, involved in multiple internships, and is a vivid chess player. This summer, Cornelius will be right here in New York City, interning for the summer, in addition to continuing his involvement with JNF, an outstanding student leader. Cornelius, welcome, and thank you for joining us on JBS today.
Nice to be here, Shahar. Thanks for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So you took part on the trip to Israel with Caravan for Democracy. When was that?
Yeah, it was a great experience. I went last year during the winter break.
And as just listening to your bio, what an outstanding student leader. Tell us a little bit. First of all, how did you come by the trip? How did you learn about this?
So this actually opportunity came by chance. I was talking to a friend that introduced me to one of the, actually for a different program, for the ICC program. And we applied for that one. We didn't end up getting into that one, but we took another shot. She wrote us a recommendation letter, and lo and behold, I was able to get accepted into this wonderful opportunity and take the trip to Israel.
Wow. Did you know anything before that about Israel?
Growing up, I never really, kind of heard much about the Middle East. During my time in high school, I took AP Euro, where I kind of became familiar with Zionism and some preliminary background information about Israel. But as far as global news, I haven't been too informed about it. So everything was a new experience, a novel experience, kind of going in with little to no information outside of the information I heard on national TV.
Right. And what did your family have to say when they heard you were going to Israel? Did they make any comments, suggestions?
Yeah, actually, majority of my family, was excited to, just hear that I was able to have the opportunity to travel to a different country, and especially one they haven't, aren't too familiar with. But, as always, they made sure, they wish me, to be safe, to be aware of my surroundings. And I would say more so my friends kind of, as they understood a little bit more about Israel with the Arab-Israeli conflict, just kind of told me to be careful and just some of the stereotypes they had going into the trip.
Right. We always hear that, right? About being careful, be safe, take care. You never know wherever you go. But it seems like, especially for Israel. And then you come to Israel. And what is your first thought?
Man, blown away. Just immediately out the airport, just the energy, the atmosphere, just everything I seen was just a novel experience for me. And so going in, I didn't want to kind of have my stereotypes limit me to the experience that I would receive from the trip. And so going in, I was just kind of, making sure to bring in positive energy and just to be aware of everything I was going in and just absorb everything for better or for worse. And so going to Israel, going to Capernaum, going to the Sea of Galilee, going to, Tel Aviv, and just all these, religious and historical places, it was unique and such that, the people that I would see there and just being able to kind of put myself on the map and say, oh, this is, going to the Bible, this is where I'm at in the Bible. I'm at Capernaum, I'm at the house of David. It was just wonderful.
That's one. So you're not just an inspirational student leader and a wonderful chess player. You're also a hobbyist photographer, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
So how did that impact your ability to look at your experiences and observe it?
Right. I would say, as you just mentioned, as a hobbyist photographer on the trip, I kind of worked as the quasi photographer for the group. And so kind of during the whole trip, I would always seek to gain a different perspective of the group, being a participant on the trip, but also trying to capture those moments, we shared with some of the keynote speakers and the leaders that we met during the trip. I was able to kind of witness, a first person point of perspective and then a third person, and just kind of relating that to myself and saying, okay, this is how, the natives might view us, coming to Israel and like learning it as a group, learning about Israel. This is how they view us, but also, this is the viewpoints that we're receiving from them too. And so just kind of having the best of both, in a sense, is kind of being in it, but also, outside of the pod.
Outside of it. I, for one, have to say I'm looking forward to coming to a gallery and see an exhibit of some of these photos. And just generally, I'm really fascinated by your outlook onto the world. And I'm sure so much of it, you were able to gain a lot from interacting with a country as complex and multi-layered as Israel.
Right. Yeah. So one of the most unique experiences, I think, for me on the trip that really kind of helped solidify the importance of this trip for me was that, during the times at night when, everyone was winding down, I would go out and just kind of tour the cities at night, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem from 12 to like 2 o'clock and just kind of sit down and just marinate in the atmosphere. And just walk around and really take in everything that I was witnessing and saying, okay, this is their culture, this is their atmosphere, this is, what they do in their free time, and, this is their city. And so just being able to kind of just roam around and, the city of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and the kibbutz and the other areas we went to, and just kind of take in the full experience was something that kind of helped solidify the memory for me, just having time to sit down and think, my preconceptions about Israel, and comparing that to the people I talked to on the streets and the food I ate, the stores I went into, just everything, just comparing it to what I seen and what I witnessed to what I believed.
Right. A lot of people say they come back from Israel with some extra pounds and not just in the suitcase. I wanted to ask you about yourself. How do you feel the trip has contributed to you personally with your personality and, being who you are?
Right. So I would say three of the most important things that I gained from the trip would be a change in perspectives, going to a region and on the country, on the planet that I've never been to before, and just, being able to sympathize and empathize with the people there and just kind of bring them into the forefront of my mental thinking and, just having that changing perspective. I'd also say the possibilities that this trip has allowed me to kind of continue on with, and, just being here with you today and just the future, my future time at with JNF or the ICC, the possibilities, kind of continue to sprout from that one emergent opportunity. And then the opportunities that was given to me by JNF. This isn't something that, this is a highly selective program that 70 people from across the nation was able to go on to, and so being selected for that and recognized for the leadership that I admit at my college.
So you tell yourself, Cornelius, hey, I can do this. I'm a leader.
Exactly.
I can make a difference. I have the power to connect people, to take my personality, my abilities, and make a difference in this world. What an incredible message this is, isn't it?
Yes, sir. And that's something that, I never initially thought, I had that in me. Like I said before, for the first program, I initially got denied towards. And so when I got accepted to the, the JNF program, it really kind of lit a fire within me. Being able to take full advantage of the opportunity given, and just making sure that I admit who I am, and do my first step forward in everything I do going forward from that point. So it's just kind of help show myself that as you just mentioned, you're able to do it as long as you put your mind up to it. Nothing is impossible.
Right. Nothing is impossible. It truly is the message of Israel. Nothing is impossible. And it's not that Israel is devoid of issues or problems that we face. I mean, there are problems across the board everywhere, wherever you look. But I think it's the spirit of countering them and overcoming them is what's really attractive about this message. You were mentioning, the similarities and contrasts between the United States and Israel. What do you find similar from your trip to Israel between Israel and the U.S.?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest similarities is just kind of overall the societies. As a global society, there's similarities between the U.S. and Israel. I know for me, just kind of going into the gas station when I was there, it's just the layout of the gas station, just the way it was constructed, but. It's just kind of a subliminal thing. You can see the similarities, but they are distinct in their own right. Israel and the United States are on completely different sides of the globe. And so more times than not, I was aware of the differences that, between the two countries, and the way that people interacted with each other, the food, which was amazing, had some of the best food I ever had.
Like what? Give me an example, like a food that you remember.
One of the ones I was really surprised about was the little pocket, the pouches, it's slipping my mind right now. I can't think of the name.
The pita?
Yeah, the pita bread was amazing, and the breakfast too. Yeah, obviously the breakfast is unique, and it was really
Isn't it like at the hotel when you have those lavish breakfasts, like it's a Byzantine king's court?
Yeah, great. And one of the things that actually really influenced me too is the morning practice of there's the quote that they say they don't mix the mother's milk with the baby's meat, and so not eating meat or milk in the breakfast during breakfast is something that kind of stood with me, and just kind of stuck with me since then. Something that I make sure to kind of follow up on.
It's the interesting perspectives you gain from visiting another place. By the way, did you expect Israel to be so tiny? Did you have any preconception about the size of Israel?
So that part actually did catch me by surprise. I didn't have any preconceptions about it because, comparatively, I didn't know how big it was on the map. I'd seen it on the map before, but I didn't know how big it was. And it did shock me how small it was, being able to draw from kind of one corner of the map, the top to the bottom, in less than a day, more or less, and just being able to kind of get the full rounded experience. So I feel that it does help connect its people, though, since it is a smaller country. You can get from one spot to another in less than a day, and that adds to the interconnectedness of Israel and just the propagation of the positivity and just the influence of different regions. And it was great. I loved it.
That's incredible. Cornelius, just in conclusion, I want to ask you, what is your message to our viewers, to fellow student leaders, to society in general, after having gone on this trip and hopefully continue to engage with the world as a young and aspiring leader?
Yeah, my biggest message would be, this is a people-to-people program, and so the issue doesn't lie with nations or countries. It lies within ourselves. In order to create a better world, we need to let down some of the barriers within our hearts and within our mental space, and just being open to the experiences and reasons of other people and other cultures. And so I feel like as a people, we need to be more accepting of others and just willing to learn. Always in a learning spirit, a scholar spirit.
Be more accepting of others and always be willing to learn. What an incredible message. Cornelius, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And we are excited about all that's coming your way in your future and happy to be a part of your life. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you, Shahar. You have a great day.
What an incredible gathering. Cornelius, an example of an aspiring student leader who can make a difference. It's Cornelius and his friends who made the point of seeing the world as it is through their eyes. And that message is the one that gives us all hope. Hope for the next generation, hope that things can and will change for the best. And all we have to do is to continue fighting for it. I'd like to thank all of you again for joining us, and good luck on the future path of the world of which we are a part. Whatever happens, we can make a difference, which I think is a great message that comes out of this Caravan for Democracy and Faculty Fellowship, and to see the kind of long-term results we have of human engagement. So as we said, they say that seeing is believing. And like we just heard, visiting Israel is one of the most important experiences to interact with a very complex, diverse, and incredibly beautiful land. The programs we've heard about have left a mark on the participants with a trail of long-term involvement between them and ordinary Israelis. And to that we say, the more, the merrier. And each is one more step in making our world a better place, not just for Israel, but for the world, to increase positivity for everyone. I'd like to thank all of you, our viewers, for watching and for being inspired along with me. And I can't wait to see you next time as we cast another fascinating eye on Israel.